Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Dispelling Myths about EHRs. My name is Melissa Bundy, and I'm the Marketing and Regulatory Resource Lead here at Point of Care Partners. I'm going to now hand you over to our speakers for today so they can introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Amy Johnson, and I'm one of the account directors at Point of Care Partners. I've been in the healthcare industry for over 20 years and health IT for the last 2.
Hello, I'm Jessica Cockrell. I am the Senior Accounts Strategist at Point of Care Partners, and I've worked in the healthcare industry for over 11 years. My background is mostly in the agency world in marketing and digital promotion, as well as health IT.
And hi, I'm Linda Hall. I'm also an account director with Point of Care Partners. I have been here for 3 years, and before that, I worked in market access marketing for 14 years in pharma, followed by 5 years at a market access agency.
And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Berger, and I'm a senior consultant here at Point of Care Partners, and I head up the EHR practice, our team of EHR experts that understand all of the top EHRs and their functionalities. My experience is primarily as an EHR product manager, having spent my career at Allscripts as well as Greenway Health.
During this presentation, we will give you a high-level overview of EHR adoption and what the provider workflow looks like. Then we'll take an in-depth look at 5 myths surrounding EHRs and ways around them. Lastly, we'll discuss what EHRs might look like in the future. POCP has a wide range of consulting relationships across the healthcare network. This includes payers, technology vendors, government, pharmaceutical companies, and more. Access to these audiences gives us unrivaled contacts across the industry. In addition, our team has several members active at the National Council for Prescription Drug Programs, or NCPDP. Our experience leading NCPDP work groups and task groups has helped to develop strong relationships with retail pharmacies, electronic health record systems, PBMs, SureScripts, and other intermediaries like NewCrop and Dr.Verse. With this wide breadth of access, POCP has worked on numerous product launches, supplying critical information and support to eliminate problems, prepare sales teams, and troubleshoot issues. POCP also provides services which leverage EHR functions to improve patient care. The first step to this is to really understand the EHR workflow and adoption rates in the industry. Almost every targeted HCP is now using an EHR. In fact, more than 80% of all office-based physicians have EHR systems in place. Physicians are also spending an increasing amount of their workday within the EHR. In a typical day, they will spend almost 4 hours interacting with the EHR to manage a clinical encounter. As the time that physicians spend within EHRs increases, their use of other digital resources like product websites is declining. The clinical workflow now runs through the EHR, and brand marketers need to understand that workflow. HCPs are also becoming familiar with EHR clinical tools and expect pharma services to be integrated into them. Here is a high-level representation of the workflow for a typical patient visit in the EHR. The EHR is used at every step of the visit, from pre-work to patient assessment and evaluation, on to treatment plan and discharge. There are points along this EHR workflow where treatment decisions are made, and it is important for sales and account teams to understand this process in order to credibly engage their customers. As you've now seen, EHRs have become an integral part of inpatient and outpatient care. And so it is a natural response as a pharmaceutical company to consider how to leverage the EHR as a tool for face time with physicians and various EHR functions. That said, it is important to avoid any strategic missteps when trying to leverage the EHR to access your target HCPs. Don't buy into common misperceptions about EHRs, how they work and what they do, and don't be misled by these 5 major EHR myths. The first myth to look out for is the misconception that EHRs can be used as an important advertising channel for the pharmaceutical industry. The use of EHRs as an advertising channel may not be as widespread as many believe. Several EHRs won't even allow messaging, as it may be against their business practices. Epic, which is the #1 most prevalent EHR in the market, will not work with pharma for marketing at all. Among the top 10 EHRs used, only some allow advertising, and even then, there are limited opportunities. For example, only a single-digit percentage of EHR users receive banner ads. A fifth receive formulary messages and decision support, and only a third see company-provided information on copays. In addition, EHRs can be very selective on what manufacturer provided information to include in the EHR, which usually requires buy-in from the medical director. Practices often must opt in to access manufacturer-provided content at the point of care. They often do not know that this is a requirement, or they forget about opting in, limiting the effectiveness of manufacturer outreach programs. While there are many reasons why EHRs are not the best advertising channel, they are an important part of the product life cycle, and there are techniques for considering them as tools in other ways. For instance, you can use EHR systems to do things like match patients and providers to clinical trials, identify new patients, especially for brands in new therapeutic areas, or help track and report outcomes and adverse events. EHRs should be leveraged as a tool to improve care quality for your products. This is why it is important for us to understand how healthcare professionals are using their EHR and how you can support their efforts. Next, Amy is going to discuss EHR myths 2 and 3.
Thank you, Jess. The second EHR myth we will cover today is that EHRs are automatically updated with new drug and diagnostic information. That is not accurate. Updates to EHRs are not instantaneous. EHR vendors rely on drug data compendia companies to provide them with updated drug data. The time frame for updates varies by EHR vendor as well as health system and independent providers. It is important to note that even after an EHR completes the update, it may take up to a few months for new data to appear at the provider's office. This is because many EHRs are not web-based and require providers or health systems to initiate the update. Timing for this is dependent upon the health system or provider. They may not realize they have an update, and often the update has to take place on off hours because no one can be working within the health system or within the EHR system to complete the update. The next few slides provide an overview of why it is important to understand the EHR update process, because oftentimes providers won't or can't prescribe a product that isn't in their EHR. This visual shows the process in which new product data travels from the manufacturer with FDA approval and is ultimately available in EHRs for providers to e-prescribe. After FDA approval, the manufacturer will provide new product data to the compendia providers, including the PI, FDA approval letter, product and carton images, and price information. The compendia will then review the data and update their drug databases according to their editorial policies. These data are then sent to the EHR vendors, typically on a set monthly basis. The EHRs then take the drug data and update their system. As I said, some EHRs are web-based, which means that their customers will receive the update at the same time and quickly. However, most EHRs are not cloud-based, which means that the timing in which the provider has the updated drug file depends on when they initiate their scheduled EHR update. It is important to note that it may be up to 6 months post-FDA approval for some providers to have the new product in their EHR. Given the increased use of e-prescribing and the variability of the drug data being available in EHRs, it's important to plan ahead and educate your internal teams about this timing so they can appropriately respond to questions from their customers. Manufacturers should be sure to send the compendia partners the product information as soon as possible after FDA approval. Compendia partners will be notified of the new product availability outside of the manufacturer, but it's important for the manufacturer to provide their product information themselves to enhance the likelihood that product information is represented appropriately. It is also important to educate and set expectations with your internal team members so they can appropriately address questions they may receive from their customers. The sales representatives can remind their customers that their EHR may need to be updated and that they should speak to their IT team. The sales team can also let providers know that most EHRs allow them to manually add a product if their EHR drug file has not been added. Manually adding a product is a separate topic that will not be covered on today's webinar, but feel free to reach out to us and we can provide you with additional information. As you are developing your launch strategy, it is important to ensure that you include an EHR action plan. Since almost all providers are now e-prescribing, A key aspect of launching a new product is ensuring it is represented accurately in the EHR so providers can e-prescribe for their appropriate patients. If the product is not in the EHR, providers may not be allowed or won't prescribe the medications if not in the EHR. It is also believed that EHR vendors have control over how the EHR behaves at the health system or practice. In the next few slides, we will provide you with the information on how EHRs are managed at the provider level. There are hundreds of EHRs in use today, and they are all different. When a health system or practice chooses an EHR, the EHR vendor provides them with a base solution that each health system or practice customizes to meet the needs of their specific priorities. For instance, one health system that uses Epic may prioritize and use different EHR functionalities than another health system that also uses Epic. There are certain functionalities that may be preloaded in an EHR, such as reports to identify gaps in care or reminders for routine tests. It is up to the health system or practice as to whether they use or configure these functionalities. There are numerous departments and personnel in a health system or practice that use the EHR. Each user has a different role and may use the EHR differently. All health practices that use an EHR have a process for deploying and updating their EHR. Most larger health systems or group practices have a formal process with support from an in-house IT department, while smaller independent practices have a less formal process and may be supported by the EHR vendor or an EHR consultant. These processes are different for every practice and health system. It's important for manufacturers to work with their customers to understand these practices when discussing EHR initiatives. A few initial questions may be, can your practice make decisions about EHR functionality and changes independently, or are decisions made across the entire health system? And how long do EHR changes typically take? Now that we covered that there is a review and approval process, it's important to understand the various decision makers. EHR use and deployment will be managed by a medical director and IT director at a larger organization, or the physician and practice manager for smaller practices. The graphic above shows the probable process for EHR management at a health system. Medical leadership will be responsible for setting the clinical priorities for the organization. Medical leadership also reviews and approves clinical guidelines and selects and approves any quality initiatives. Most health systems have quality departments and personnel responsible for implementing, measuring, and reporting any quality initiatives. The clinical or health IT department will be responsible for implementing the EHR customization and changes. It is important that your sales team are well educated regarding the EHR and the decision-making process within health systems and practices so they can appropriately respond to inquiries as they relate to EHR use. While every EHR is different and is customized to the specific needs of the health system or practice, your sales team has the opportunity to support their customers with foundational understanding and knowledge on EHRs or recommendations on questions they may want to ask their practice IT staff. Linda will now address the fourth EHR myth that we are covering today.
Thanks, Amy. Myth number 4 is that all the information needed to satisfy a prior authorization requirement for brands, including specialty brands, are in EHRs and the data should just be easily extracted to expedite the approval with the payer. Unfortunately, it's not that simple for a number of reasons. In addition to the reasons that you're already aware of, like different payer form requirements, EHRs don't have patient-level formulary information, only plan-level formulary. Providers typically don't rely on the formulary information in EHRs for that reason. Secondly, common prior authorization requirements are not in discrete data fields in the EHR to be extracted. Things like lab results sometimes are scanned into the EHR by the office staff, so they're recognized as a picture, not data. Also, some PA requests require calculations, which are not in the EHR. These issues have prompted our CMS administrator, Seema Verma, to call for an end to physician fax machines by 2020 by improving digital health information. This is in an effort to realize the vision of a health ecosystem that sees the free flow of information between patient, provider, and payers. Electronic prior authorization is making a lot of progress in becoming a reality. In fact, it is a reality for some payers and EHRs. However, the data in the EHR still needs to be finessed. As the saying goes, garbage in, garbage out. So there's still some manual work required by the practice. Payers and providers are in support of electronic prior authorization to reduce administrative cost burden and to increase time to therapy for patients. Automation for medical benefit drugs is on an even slower path than specialty med prior authorization. We're still a few years out. However, there is a large payer-provider project called the HL7 Da Vinci Project, which is working to make automation a reality for drugs, including those that are physician-administered. So here on the left is the current standard prior authorization experience, which is more retrospective, as you're aware, versus the more prospective way of fulfilling prior authorization requirements, in which the providers know the PA requirements at the time of prescribing. Today, about 65% of PA transactions are retrospective and 35% are prospective. As you can imagine, in the scenario on the right, more of the data would be needed in the EHR and in a format that can be easily extracted. Currently, 11% of prescription claims are rejected at the pharmacy, and on average, 66% of those prescriptions require a prior authorization. In addition, 37% of those prescriptions will be abandoned due to the complex paper process requirements, increasing risk of health problems and hospitalization. EPA may increase medication adherence by helping to ensure that patients leave the pharmacy with their prescription in hand. With prospective prior authorization, patients get their medications on average of 13.2 days sooner than those who receive prior authorization retrospectively. Providers may not be aware of the maximal time and cost savings available through prospective EPA, and providers don't fully trust the information for formulary that's supplied in their EHR systems. Real-time pharmacy benefit checks and EPA are being utilized as a powerful combination to save providers time while increasing speed to therapy. Now, the next myth is that we assume that prescribers know their EHR intimately because they spend so much of their day working in it. And we assume that they've gotten a lot of training, when in fact, prescribers are only using the basic features. It's like any of us using Microsoft Word or PowerPoint. We know the basics, but not many of us know the advanced features and their benefits. To complicate matters, EHRs are not intuitive. So many features require training to use them, and training takes precious time that's simply not going to be prioritized by providers. So when pharma field teams can come to providers with EHR solutions, they're appreciative. Providers would appreciate learning about EHR features that can help them, such as prompts or reminders that can help them to address patients at risk for events or who are undertreated on current therapies. Reporting features that can help them to report on performance measures, and also order sets that can standardize therapies based on the latest treatment protocols and educational materials. And custom patient education materials where they can make their patient education materials more robust with some prescribed brand education from pharma and share them with patients with their after visit summary or through their EHR patient portal. Now I'd like to hand the presentation over to Mike Berger, our senior consultant and EHR expert, to talk about future trends in EHRs.
And so we can say for sure that the future holds an ocean of opportunity. What we've done is put together a technology roadmap mapping out the trends that we expect to see in EHRs over the next few years. We won't go into each and every one of these, but there's a couple to point out which I think make some sense. In the nearer term, apps which have been enabled to provide transparency at the point of care have really come into their own of late, and there's more hitting the market each day. So for example, that real-time pharmacy benefit, we're seeing a lot of that. A little bit further into the future, we're seeing more and more EHRs opening up APIs, application programming interfaces, so that they can enable access to the data in the EHR. And along with that, we're seeing a rapid expansion in the cloud apps that are built to support interoperability and all these third-party apps clamoring to get access to the data. We also see EHRs evolving. Today, they're used primarily as a documentation tool to write down the details of the patient visit, but we're also seeing things gravitating towards using the EHR as a diagnostic tool to help to identify what the appropriate treatments are for patients. A little bit further into the future, we see bidirectional data exchange within the EHRs. For the most part today, these apps that have been built can extract data from the EHR, but don't have an ability to put information back into the EHR. So over time, the ability to put information back in will also take root. And finally, we're looking at an Apple-style health model for EHR interoperability, which is really focused more on the consumer than it is on the provider. Now, there's a couple of trends that we'd like to highlight in a little bit more detail. And certainly these are the trends that will have impact within the life science sector. The quality of the EHR data is going to be vastly improved, and that data will be more liquid, accessible, transparent. The EHR diagnostic data and the analytic and treatment capabilities within the EHR will expand. Cloud-based apps will become more and more available and more sophisticated and integrated in with the EHRs, and of course, that Apple-type health model. So we're seeing improvement in EHR data quality, liquidity, and transparency. For example, drug utilization and payer data in EHRs, which is having an impact on prescribing decisions. We're seeing patient-generated data in the EHR from tools like surveys, and we're seeing more and more detailed clinical information, which will power outcomes analysis and drive market access decisions. The improvement in data quality, liquidity, and transparency means that there'll be more robust data, and more robust data can lead to better treatment effectiveness measurement to understand if a drug is meeting its promise and creating better outcomes. Also increase adherence by using the utilization data to make sure patients are taking their medications, as well as opening up the door to a whole new world of real-world evidence post-launch. Patient-generated information is making itself known in the EHRs as well. Patients are able to take surveys and provide information back to their providers in answer to questions, and that is driving adherence and ultimately improved care. And having that full and transparent payer information available at the point of care certainly will increase first fill rates and reduces the time to therapy for drugs with access restrictions like prior authorizations. We're also seeing an increase in the diagnostic, analytic, and treatment capabilities of EHRs. For example, population health features that identify gaps in care and capabilities to precisely target patients for specific treatments. Improvement in the use of these new EHR capabilities will absolutely make the brand even more impactful. Will make the EHR even more impactful for brands. Manufacturers are going to have opportunities to work with customers using patient identification tools like patient lists, reminders, population health reporting. It will remain important for brands then to be accessible in the EHR workflow. So things like order sets and treatment regimens need to be kept up to date and current. All these EHR capabilities enable patients to move through the clinical pathway to appropriate therapies more smoothly and without interruption. Another trend is the expansion of cloud-based apps, which work in conjunction with EHRs. These apps, which are sort of a remote technology, are also having an impact on treatment decisions. They enable an ability to customize workflows and the user interface so that the physician experience is improved, but also the patient experience. This cloud-based ecosystem presents opportunities for manufacturers to offer applications. These applications might even be prescribed like a medication, which will have an effect, we believe, on adherence. They could also enable delivery of personalized patient ed pulled directly from a manufacturer. And analytics will be used to serve up the right patient ed materials to the right patient at the right time in the progression of the patient's condition. Finally, we're seeing the growing adoption of that Apple-style consumer health data model. This model enables the patient, the healthcare consumer, to have access to better information and complete information. When consumers have access to a broad view of their clinical data from all different providers, but in one place, there's an opportunity to raise brand awareness via a whole new promotional channel. There could soon be a day when a patient is prescribed a treatment, is prescribed an app. The patient goes to the app store, they download the manufacturer's app onto their device, and then the app interacts directly with the EHR data in the patient's personal health record. Ultimately, we believe that as consumer access to health data expands, a whole new consumer-focused business model will emerge. And with that, we have a few closing thoughts. We've definitely seen that the key to success in this rapidly evolving world of EHRs is to have a partner that has deep and broad expertise. Now, Point of Care Partners has supported more than 175 launches over the last 5 years, and we are EHR experts. Especially around launch, accessibility to a new product in the EHR is vital, and the way to ensure that access is to arm the sales team with tools that can help customers quickly, easily find and prescribe new products. We also know that a sales and account team that can talk the talk about EHRs can accelerate adoption. Knowing EHRs and how to leverage them should not only be a part of every launch plan, but also factored into the product maturity lifecycle. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Melissa so we can answer the questions that have come in over the course of the discussion today.
Great, thank you, Mike. Just as a reminder, again, you can submit questions via the GoToWebinar dashboard under the questions section. But we do have a couple of questions that are somewhat related, so I'll just ask them together and you guys can answer them. So one is, how do I know which EHRs are cloud-based and have automatic updates and which require a health system to implement the update? The other question is, after you submit a new product to a compendia, when do you know it's been updated?
Melissa, I'll take that. So POCP monitors when compendia have added new product information into their database systems. We also track a product's availability in the top 20 EHRs in one of our products, the product update timetable. This document identifies expected dates of when the EHR will see the product in their in their database, and then it identifies whether the EHR is cloud-based or requires a manual update from the physician or health system. Hope that answers the question.
And I'll just pipe in to add that in addition to predicting when we believe that the products will be added, we're also verifying that, both at the EHR vendor as well as at practices, to make sure that what we're expecting actually happens.
Great, thank you both. Well, actually, I'm not seeing any other questions coming through, either question or chat. So I think with that, we can close. We really do appreciate everyone attending today. And just a reminder, you will see a brief survey pop up on your screen after we close the webinar, and we really would like your feedback. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.